Welcome, everyone, to this special interview edition of Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gil Gross. Today's episode is a conversation with Cracked Racquets editor-in-chief and podcaster Alex Gruskin. He's been on a couple of times now. You should know him very well. And it is the holiday season, isn't it? Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to all. And we're making wish lists. We want our presents. And for us here at Monday Match Analysis, those presents are going to be tennis players getting better, doing great things in 2021, and putting a great product on the table that we can all enjoy. Alex and I get into our 2021 off-season wish list. Without further ado, here's Alex Gruskin. We're joined once again by the great Cracked Racquets podcaster, the one and only Alex Gruskin, great friend of the program. We call him Grusky sometimes. And I'm excited for this one. You know, off season, we've been kind of sitting back and waiting for the next season to come. So we're going to talk about what we want to see next year. How many podcasts right now are you hosting? 5, 6?
Really depends on the day. I would say no less than 2, no more than 5. I try to limit myself once I hit a 5th podcast on the day, even my computer's like, all right, Alex, that's enough. But no, it is always a pleasure. I will say I knew, I suppose I still know, but in high school and college, I knew a girl liked me if she went from calling me Grusky to calling me Alex. If she started calling me by my first name, I'd be like, something changed here. I feel like you're taking me more seriously as a human now. But of course, it is always a pleasure to join you, my friend. And yeah, it's off-season mode. There are ITF events, which kind of ruins the title of off-season if there are still matches going. But certainly, a little bit of time to reflect. And yeah, I have plenty of wishes for next season. So very excited for this one.
Grusky, I'm glad you're here with us. All right. So we're going to go through the rankings. We're going to hit on all the top 10, and then we'll get into some wild cards, some folks that we just feel like talking about, but they haven't earned that, the cutoff for the tournament is the top 10. It's very competitive. It's like the ATP finals to guarantee your spot on this podcast. Let's start with Novak Djokovic. Look, he won a major, best win percentage on tour, still going, still firing. He is, here's the thing. I feel like it'll be very easy to just point out where people can get better by just pointing out their weaknesses, right? But we're going to try to do both. We're going to say, keep that up, but then maybe add that, right? And for Djokovic, it's keep covering the court like you're 25. That's like my first and foremost point for Novak. On the other hand, do you feel like his shot tolerance was not as strong, especially after his run before the COVID shutdown?
That's such a good question. I'll start by saying Monday Match Analysis show is the ATP Tour Finals of Tennis program, so that is a very apt comparison to start things off. I think for Novak Djokovic, lost in the hoopla that has been the past 9 months. What was my wish for him? It had nothing to do with this tennis. It was just like, I know you have an agent, I know you have a manager, but hire a press secretary. I mean, you gotta brush up the statements, you gotta brush up some of the off-court looks, some of the things he is doing. But on the court, he was 41-5 this year, right? Like he won, what was it, his first 22, 23 matches of the season, wins the Western and Southern Open, undefeated going into that, round of 16 match against Carreno Busta, where obviously he gets defaulted. That being said, I mean, yes, I don't know if it was a disinterested Novak Djokovic, because I don't think that's a fair summary, but I think once Novak locked in that number 1 ranking for the season, and now it looks like he's going to break that record in 2021, certainly it wasn't the same Novak we saw honestly, of 3 years ago. I do even think during his undefeated streak, I want to flip this back on you, because the matches that pop out to me, the Gael Monfils match, right, where he faced multiple match points down, I think that was in Dubai. Even in that Australian Open final against Dominic Thiem, for a little bit of that match, you felt like Thiem might break through and actually beat Djokovic in Australia. And that was the first time Djokovic had ever felt vulnerable, at least in my opinion, in a slam final. He was really good at 41-5, but yes, to answer your question, I do think it was a half step, maybe, even 3/4 of a step slower.
I have a microscope on his cardio going into 2021. I have a
Yeah.
microscope on it. I want it because there's been energy dips at times recently. There's been matches, even against Nadal in the French final, where I feel like would the Novak of old want to kind of extend these points and dig in physically a little bit more. So I'm just watching that carefully. Another thing I have for him, second serve consistency. It was so incredibly amazing in Australia. I could not believe how good his second serve was in the Aussie Open. And then sometimes there were issues like Western and Southern Open, and maybe it was because of the neck. So I want to see how his second serve is. Then the last thing is something you basically just alluded to with the Monfils match, and time again, what's won Novak the most matches over the course of the last 3 seasons ever since he went on his walkabout in 2017. Immunity to pressure. That's what he needs to keep. As long as he has that, he's going to continue to win these close matches on the biggest stages in tennis.
So where I want to start with what I agree with you on, but then of course I have to swerve a little bit because otherwise what are we doing here? To your point about Novak's second serve, he won 53.1% of second serve points this season, and all these numbers coming from Tennis Abstract, the best resource in all of tennis. That number is his lowest number on tour since 2010, when he won only 52% of his second serve points. And obviously 2010 was the last year before Novak Djokovic was Novak freaking Djokovic. And look, it's not like the 53% is that much lower. He was 56, 57 range, somewhere between there and 60% in the 10-year stretch since 2010. But even a slight dip from Novak Djokovic makes a difference because that second serve, if it hangs up, it gives opponents opportunities to attack. And he's not 26, 27 years old anymore. And to expect him, whose game has been so predicated on physicality, to maintain that level into his mid to late 30s, that's just unrealistic of any non-LeBron James athlete. And maybe Novak Djokovic is in that category. Maybe the gluten-free really is the magic way to go, and he'll be this flexible and this quick with his first step until he retires. But if he loses even half a step more, does he have the weapons from the ground to hit players off the court? No, it's what's so good about him is what he can do while on the run, on the move. It's different than any player in tennis history. And if he can't move as well, things get interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him volley more, right? But is he that good of a serve and volleyer, that good of an attacker to, offset any loss in step? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he needs his movement as much as anyone, right? It's kind of it's similar in prototype as your guy Andy Murray, right?
Yeah, very, very similar. Only he's still got 2 hips.
Novak has been remarkably healthy, really, throughout his career. Okay, let us move on to Rafael Nadal, the number 2 player in the world. This was a year. I mean, he left some tennis on the table, and ultimately, the year was just defined by what he did at Roland Garros, and I think that's okay. It was a successful year for Nadal. He went 27-7. Here's my wish list. And it was hard for me to think of one for Nadal. Very difficult because I feel like he's become so well-rounded and he keeps improving, and it's just difficult to find stuff. Consistency on serve, I think, and I know I just said that about Djokovic's second, but I mean, I actually mean technically with Nadal. I'm not really talking about the actual effect of it. I just feel like he's been tinkering. And when is that going to become a little bit more solid is one question that I have. Be more daring in big moments. Sometimes I think he's playing, really good aggressive tennis on a hard court even, but then he comes up against a guy like Dominic Thiem, who's beat him twice in a row on hard courts, and he's just not really taking the offensive and taking initiative, and he's sinking back into his old Rafael Nadal habits of being what used to be the most blazing fast player in the history of tennis. And I think it's hurt him against Dominic Thiem. But again, I really struggled with coming up with one with Nadal.
Yeah. So Rafael Nadal, 27-7 during this 2020 season. And, you are going to be joining me on the Great Shot podcast next week, one of the 7 million podcasts I host for Cracked Racquets. And we will be doing an ATP award show. And I have a special category for Nadal. And he will be, I guess because he's one of many nominees in this category, but we were joking about it beforehand. It's the People Don't Talk About This Enough award. And it's a joke because nowadays, anytime someone thinks they're making a good point, they'll say, well, people don't talk about, and then they'll try and make their good point. And it's like, no, just because you're making that point doesn't mean you're the only one who's made it anyways. One of the things that I think anytime you watch a Rafael Nadal match, someone's going to say it probably halfway through set 2. They're going to say, people don't talk about Rafael Nadal, the volleyer, enough, how much better he's gotten moving forward. And with that first serve and his hands at the net, he's a fantastic, gold medal doubles player as well. And so, yada, 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 yada. And I do think, to your point about him being daring, that's the manifestation of him being daring, right? Later in his career, at this point, he plays serve and volley. He opens up the court and moves forward. He knows how heavy that forehand is, how difficult a shot it is to return. And if he just takes time away from his opponent because of, how much effort, how much footwork it takes for them to track down that ball, all he has to do is take the time away. And that's why he's at the net. But it is worth noting this season, Rafael Nadal, 63% of his first serves go in. That's the lowest number of his career. And it's the 5th straight season that his first serve percentage has declined. So he went from 70.5% during the 2016 season, where of course he was a little bit banged up, to 68%, 65.6, 64.8, 63%. And what's so funny is with that first serve percentage going down, it's been matched with a first serve win percentage that's gone up. So what does that tell me? A stare at the analytics, the eye test as well. He has gotten more aggressive with his first serve, because I think very much like you identified, Gill, it's a little bit harder for him to play those physical points, especially against a Dominic Thiem or a Daniil Medvedev, as we saw at the ATP Tour Finals. Just, they want the physical grind. They're ready to make these matches track meets. And, Daniil Medvedev is the best mortal impression of Novak Djokovic. He's just going to go ball after ball, absorb your spin, change direction, all of these different things. So yeah, the wish list for me would be for people to stop saying people haven't noticed and just start saying Rafael Nadal is an exceptional volleyer at this stage of his career. But I agree with you. I think that's the trend. I actually think that's a really positive stat, even though that first serve percentage has gone down. If he can keep it above 60% and he can start winning as he has these past 2 seasons, over 76% of his first serve points, that's the recipe for him. That's how he's adjusted to losing half a step in a step. It's that he can play more aggressive.
Yeah, 2005, Rafael Nadal had a 70% first serve percentage.
He had capris.
Yeah, he had capris and a 70% first serve percentage, but Nadal doesn't want to go back to that. We don't want that. And no, if we're actually being honest, that was the worst serving version of Rafael Nadal. So that's why first serve percentage, I'm very glad that you've pointed this out and came to this conclusion, because first serve percentage is not a good stat. It is so incomplete. And this is a good example of why. I just feel like Nadal hasn't gotten comfortable yet with a serving style. I feel like he's still looking for it, still finding it.
I do agree with you. I agree that he's finding it. I don't think I think he gets mad at himself because he knows he needs to be more aggressive. But of course, when you've built a 19 career Grand Slam title resume off of playing a certain style, you're going to be stubborn. You're going to stick to habits. I try not to talk over guests or people on a show with. I can't do it. I've built up a habit. And so for Rafa, I just think, yes, I agree with you. You can see the struggle for him where he's like, I think I can still do this every point. I know I shouldn't. I would also just add one more quick wish for him, and I will do it as soon as he does it. The hairline is weakening. It's diminished. And like shaved head Rafa could be bald Michael Jordan. It just could be the next phase for him, the complete evolution for Rafa, and I hope we get to see it.
I don't want to think about that.
I know.
He used to have this amazing, he had the luscious
mane,
unbelievable hair, and you're right, it's really fading. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. I think you said it all.
Or he just shaves in a ram's horn. Like, that's just what he goes with, like the Rafa symbol.
Yes, that's actually, I like that. Let's do that. Dominic Thiem, breakout season. Not much. He gets the first major under his belt. Nadal and Djokovic and Federer, none of them are there. But look, he had his chance, just like Federer at the 2009 French. He had his chance. He took it. And that is sometimes very, very difficult to do. And just throughout the season, Dominic Thiem just continues to improve and improve and improve. It's also the pandemic pause champion, the exhibition king. Okay, so let's give him that credit as well. For Thiem, though, improving the return for me is going to make all the difference on grass, especially where he has yet to break through. And I still think that maybe, I don't know if you have this because you're full of stats right now, but I feel like the return, the first serve percentage on return, the win percentage, sometimes I feel that Dominic Thiem is just not winning a lot of points on his opponent's first serve. Knowing when to scale back his aggression, but I say that with hesitation because I'm starting to realize that's just not who he is. And I'm wondering, I might stop saying that. I might stop wishing for that for Dominic Thiem, but still, sometimes I wish that he would just rely on his tremendous athleticism, his amazing court coverage, and his great fitness, and just be like, look, I'm not timing the ball perfectly right now. Let me go for less and stop gifting my opponent's errors for a second here. So I'd like to see more out of that. The last wish is win some really big matches. He's 2-7 in Masters 1000s and Grand Slam finals combined and tour finals. And it's an ugly record. That's an obvious thing to say, win big matches, right? Of course, that's on the wish list. But what I want to make clear about that is I don't think he needs to really change anything in order for that to happen. I just think it's going to happen. I don't think he's bad under pressure. I don't think he has a nerves issue. He was 17-11 in tie breaks this year. So my wish is for him to win big matches, but I just think it's going to happen naturally. And 2021 will be the year where he'll start to make progress on that 2-7 record.
Yeah, I think all of those are good points. I mean, the reason I have all these stats, obviously I'm compensating. I know when I've met my match, I got to bring my A game. Come on. But yeah, there's a reason I'm wearing a hat and you're not, because you've got those luscious locks, much like young Rafa. And I'm 3 years in your future, my friend.
Oh boy.
But finasteride is a friend to both of us. Trust me. But no, to your point about Dominic Thiem, you asked for my wish. It's stay the course. And you mentioned this at the beginning. He went something, it's an unofficial number, but something like 27-2 or something crazy in matches or UTS battles, whatever, during the pandemic. And so if you add the two things together, that means I believe 62-11 on the season, or excuse me, 52-11 on the season. That 52-11 number, win percentage wise, he's over 80%. He's at right around 83. And I've done this on our podcast before. You look at the elite seasons in tennis history. When do you know a player is making a leap? It's when they rip off that 80% win percentage season. And unfortunately, he didn't get to do it in certified ATP matches. But that's what Dominic Thiem did this season. He had his, I am here, I am the best player in men's tennis, let me show you why. And obviously, with Djokovic and Nadal being as good as they are, to say he's the undisputed best tennis player in the world right now on the men's side, you can't say that. But he has joined their ranks now. The way their game has slightly dropped off and the way his level has risen, I just think he has to be included in the conversation with them at this point. And then plus, he got the biggest monkey off of his back. He won that first Grand Slam title. So I agree with you. From a tennis perspective, my wish list is just stay the course, be solid. Yeah. And unfortunately, I have individual match first serve win percentages. I don't have them for the
I got it.
Yeah, for the course of the season. Give me some numbers.
I have it. So he won 31.4% against first serve. Oh, wait, that's last 52. Let me switch it to 2020.
Okay.
Okay.
I like it.
We've done that.
Beautiful. Leave all of this in.
Yes. And is
just quickly ask. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's close, but he is behind Djokovic who's at 32.5. These margins are razor thin, but this is, when you have the sample size of how many points in an entire season, it's significant. So Schwartzman is first, Djokovic is second, Federer, he doesn't count. Nadal it looks like around the 8 mark. Zverev is ahead of him, Dimitrov, Sinner, Medvedev. Then you have Dominic Thiem. So it's not bad if you look at the tour in its entirety, but what are we using as our standard for Dominic Thiem? We're using the elite of the elite in men's tennis, and he is behind, as I suspected, in that first serves against percentage.
So what's interesting, you mentioned he was 11th in that category. I have it up in front of me now. He's lower than that on the second serve return category. And that really surprises me because I think one of the things that Dominic Thiem was so good at in big matches, particularly when Zverev was throwing him hanging curveballs in that US Open final, and he was starting to cramp, so he was playing particularly aggressive, is his willingness to take the big cut on that second serve return. Yes, he's 12 feet behind the baseline, but if he strikes it cleanly, unless you're adventurous in serving and volleying and taking the space away, and shout out to the few guys who do that, that return gets him to neutral at a minimum. Often from there, he's controlling the point. And so I'm surprised to see him this low on, behind guys like, Karen Khachanov. Although you look at the list of the guys above him, all names you would feel very good about as a returner. The only shocking one is Filip Krajinovic at number 3. But, it's guys like Khachanov or Goffin or Rublev, Dimitrov, Carreno Busta, Taylor Fritz on that list above him. Shout out to you, Taylor Fritz. But, I mean, it's big backswings. Like it is. He takes big cuts at the ball, but he does everything else so well. If that's his compromise to get into his patterns, if that's what he has to feel comfortable doing, I think you can tell with his coach, Nicholas Massoud, they're just kind of like, okay, like, I guess this is the reality we live with and we build around.
I think they're working on it. I don't think they're accepting. I don't think they're complacent. I think they're, they've experimented with the block and they're trying to shorten things up, but we'll see that return. We agree that that's an area that can be improved, but I like your main point, your stay the course wish list. Something that I feel pretty strongly about is at the current trajectory of Thiem's development, he's very much on pace to become the best player in the world very soon. Right. Absolutely. And that's not like, I tweeted that and someone was like, well, duh, that's true for every player if they keep improving. No, it's not. Most players can't be the best player in the world.
Tell that to Milos Raonic. Milos Raonic is like, didn't I get to be number 1 in the world? Wasn't this supposed to be my reign? And like, no, sorry, that's not how tennis works.
Right. You were never, that was not going to happen. Okay. Daniil Medvedev is our number 4 player, one of 2 players to win a Masters title in 2020, a very coveted thing in this strange season because there were only 3. ATP Finals champ. He really salvaged his season in the last either 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending. Yeah, it was 3 weeks because there was a week break after Paris. I have an interesting one for Medvedev. Very simple. I want him to get physically stronger and improve his racket speed. And I just think that's the missing piece.
Okay. You're right. At the same time, I just could not wish for you to be more wrong because everything about Daniil Medvedev, the lengthiness, the blocks, the slices, again, it's just when he wants to hit the forehand big down the line, you're like, is your arm going to fly off with that forehand? Maybe not. It reminds you of like the Lego, right? That goes wrong when you're playing for it too much and it flies and it slings. And that's what makes him so different than the rest of these guys, how unconventional it is. Now, again, the racket speed on the forehand, I don't want to say you're wrong because from aesthetically, how could you say that? Like it's an obvious thing, and that racket speed sometimes, if you serve to that side, it forces him to hit a block return because he just can't generate enough racket speed, can't get his racket around the ball quick enough to do anything with that forehand. At the same time, you go watch it in person, and you're just like, oh wait, that's fine. You're like, oh my God, the way you think it looks funky on TV, but the way he goes from set to under the ball and hitting through it, it's a split second. That's why he's one of the best of the best. And I think when Medvedev is playing his best indoor tennis, when he's really feeling himself, he'll go big down the line and it looks good, right? So like I don't think it's a pace generation problem. I think it's just, here's a guy with a million different tools at his disposal. What do you want to do, Daniil Medvedev? What is going to be the thing that just wins you matches more, or makes matches simple for you? Because if you're going to be the number one player in the world, you can't play these 7-6, 6-2 long physical grinds, because over the course of 45 weeks, you're just not going to have anything left in the tank.
Sure. Yeah. I guess here's how I would put it in tactical terms instead of technical terms. And let's see if we can come a little bit closer. Or maybe it's very possible we just see this differently. And of course that can happen. But we all know when you're playing a great player or someone better than you and you're on the court, one of the common kind of results of that is, oh, if I drop a ball in the middle of the court, I'm a dead man. If I leave it short, I'm dead. Like they the best players in the world, they make you pay. And I think Medvedev doesn't always make you pay. I think sometimes he's you get more errors when he's in the mid-court trying to hit aggressive forehands, or if he doesn't want to miss, then he's not quite as aggressive. And you might be able to defend. If you look at the match against Fucsovics at the French, great example. Martin moves really well. The court was slow, and he could just defend anything that Daniil could throw at him because Medvedev just didn't hit a big enough ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I'll look through Tennis Abstract numbers by where he ranks in the last 52 weeks as a server and a returner. In terms of his first serve percentage, in terms of win percentage compared to the other guys, he's number 5 on the list on the first serve. In terms of win percentage on the second serve, I believe he's number 7. In terms of first serve returns, he's number 10 over the past 52 weeks on tour. In terms of second serve returns, he's number 4. If you aggregate all those rankings together, he will have the best results of any player on tour. And that's just, for me, that's the big picture. When I look to 2021, it's in terms of a floor, I want to see it more on grass, but you think to yourself, okay, with that serve and with his hands and his creativity, why wouldn't he be good on grass? It's where he beat Stan Wawrinka and had his first breakthrough moment.
And the low bounce, I totally agree.
He doesn't move great on the clay, but he's a great athlete with size and length, and you like that always. It's just like, he is your modern player. When you look back at this era, Daniil Medvedev encapsulates everything you want from the modern guy. And it's just, well, him and Zverev. I think Zverev maybe even more so in the traditional mold, but yeah, so again, I agree with you. Like, yes, I think it's just, what do you want plan A to be, Daniil? And once you figures it out, I cannot wait to see what it is.
I think plan A is wear you down. He was dominant.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
It's so true.
It must be exhausting to play Daniil Medvedev. 9-4 in deciding sets. So he gets you tired, that's for sure. But I like your point, by the way. We've seen in the NBA, the tall guys can shoot now. And the term that's thrown around is unicorn. And I think the tennis equivalent is the tall guys can move now, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Nailed it.
All right. I want to give you the first crack, no pun intended, at Roger Federer.
Hold on. Let me show the logo. There it is. Of course. Like, rate, subscribe, review, share with your friends. So I think the meanest thing anyone has ever said to me on tennis Twitter, well, it actually wasn't mean. It was delightful, but I think they called me a colonialist. They said with my a colonizer, my colonizing mindset, how could I ever be trusted to judge something objectively? And I was like, thank you. I was like, I agree. I would have been great in colonial times. But the reason I got that response is because it was related to Roger Federer and saying, man, looking at this landscape, how tough is it going to be for Roger Federer to come back under these circumstances? And I was actually able to listen to the beginning, but not the entirety of the podcast you did with Joel Drucker, Amy Dahl on the Big Three. And you talked about this exact thing for Roger Federer. And I think you guys nailed it. There are just so many good players right now. And for him there's going to be no margin for him to work his way back anymore, because you're not going to like be able to work your way back over the course of a 2-week major, because even if it's not Andrey Rublev, Alex Zverev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, it could be John Millman now. It could be Miomir Kecmanovic. It could be Sasha Bublik on a given day if he's serving well. There are just so many players who can play this outstanding tennis, and he's 39. Like, who have we seen make or, win a Grand Slam, win a Masters event at age 39 or older? I off the top of my head, maybe Connors, like maybe.
I don't think he won one at 39. I think it was 30.
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
and it's just like, so I guess for me, the question is, my wish list is manage your expectations. Don't expect Roger Federer to come out in Australia and win the title. If he does, that's one of the best sporting accomplishments. If he's even on the court in Australia, that's an all-time thing. Ditto with Wimbledon, ditto with the Olympics. At this point, it's all gravy. Like, everything is gravy. We've gotten the meat and potatoes of Roger Federer's career. It was, I'm in Indianapolis. It was the St. Elmo's of meals. That's the premier, that's where you want to go. That's the steakhouse du jour. Roger Federer gave us that. If you're expecting him to be the number one player in the world, I think you're just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
You're right. Now, I will throw in the caveat that we have not seen a version of Roger Federer who's really gonna be threatened on a regular basis to Sasha Bublik, and that's how we'll know that there's a big, that the decline is really upon us, and so far, like, let's be very clear, that decline has not come. And there was a point in time where it was Federer is losing in the semifinals. He must be retiring, which is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
That, it's when he's not making second weeks, that's when we'll know, right? Not as long as he's in the semifinals, he's right there. But I agree with you. It's a 39-year-old coming off of a knee surgery. I mean, hello, we cannot expect that much. So yeah, my wish list is very similar. Heal the knee, hopefully move decently well. Make sure that Wimbledon is played. Just use your Roger Federer powers to make that happen, and make sure that there's an Olympics this year. And I think if, I think he wants the calendar to be friendly, and he wants to play those events, and that in itself will be satisfying to see.
Yeah, I would add to that, sell hats. Obviously, that's a priority in 2021. You got the RF back, rocket. Number 2 would be the swerve. Roger Federer will play until there's another Olympic Games. And we are all rooting for the world to come back to normal. We are all rooting for all of these things that we missed in 2020 to come back in 2021. If you're a Roger Federer fan, you're fine with the Olympics being moved to 2022. You're like, you know what? Let's just make 2022 really special, do winter and summer Olympics back to back, and guarantee at least 18 more months of Roger Federer.
Yeah. I would agree. It's a big one for Novak as well. He wants to win that very badly.
For sure. And Andy, 2-time defending champ.
Yes. That's Andy's. I forgot to. This is completely off topic. I forgot to ask you a trivia question. I meant to start the pod with this because it's so good. Okay. You're not going to get it, is the caveat to the trivia question.
Okay.
Which ATP player had the longest average match duration in 2020? No cheating.
Well, in terms of player comparisons, someone once compared my game with women to Michael Chang, and they were like, yeah, you were really good early on, but man, have you faded. And I just thought that, I just feel like that's a joke worth sharing for your listeners. That buys me time to think. Who is someone who just takes long? So who played any absurd matches? Were there any like 17 or 5-setters? Oh, what about, I mean, it could be, what's his name? Corentin Moutet. Like, I feel like because he played that like 7-hour at the US Open, and he just plays a grinded out style. But by your face, it's not going to be him, because you would have been like, that's correct. Is it in that realm of player? Is it like, it's not a top guy? Don't tell me.
No.
Yeah. All right. One guess. I'm looking at the rankings. The answer is going to be John Millman.
No. Roger Federer.
No.
2 hours, 29 minutes, average match length for the Swiss maestro.
That's amazing.
The longest on tour. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean,
it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, now that you say it, it's like, yeah, limited matches. The ones he played were long. They were all 5 sets, or they were all best of 3 or best of 5. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully that he does not want to repeat that stat. He wants to. That's not on our not on his wish list to play the longest average match on tour.
Novak losing half a step is on his wish list, though. It's like, that's fine with me. It's like, let's see what he's got.
Yes. All right. Let's. Now we're outside of the. Well, now we're just. I don't know. It's not really a structural thing.
It's a free for all.
We're outside. Yeah, exactly. We're outside of the top 5, if that means anything. Let's go to Stefanos Tsitsipas. We are at risk of doing a 3-hour pod, so let's try to get it a little bit faster.
Sure.
Tsitsipas, very simple for me. I want him to stop missing under pressure. Like, he's so amazing. His game is so overwhelmingly good. On so many levels, the athleticism, the offense, the transition game, the volleys, the serve. Just like, calm down under pressure and, don't get worse when the going gets tough.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep the stats to a minimum here because I don't feel the need to compensate anymore. The first serve win percentage has gotten better. The first serve in percentage has gotten better. I guess I agree with you, but I would phrase it exactly the opposite. Keep missing under pressure because what you're doing is working. His game style works. ATP Finals champion, semifinal this year at the French Open, had Djokovic on the brink. Trust yourself. Keep trusting yourself. That plan A is that good. And of course, a little thing, the wish list, learn how to hit a backhand slice, of course. The second he can go off speed, but I trust the process.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he should get more defensive if that's how you interpreted it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what did you mean? Go on then, because I think I don't think you interpreted it like that, but I just think like the misses under pressure for me were a good thing because it means he's like, if I execute my game, I can win, and he just came just short on a couple of occasions of executing that final point.
Yeah, to me, it's more like. I find that big points are, unforced errors and sometimes it's not even him being more aggressive. It's just him being more nervous or more anxious. So you can look at the first 2 sets against Novak and circle the big points at the French and say, okay, here's a 30-all point where he got a forehand in the midcourt and clearly, visibly, he just jumped out of his shoes and missed it horribly because it's mental. So, I'm saying that Tsitsipas is a lot better at 2-all serving at 15 love than he is at 5-all up a break point. That's what I want to see get better for him. I think the game, when it's right, I think it's so good. I think he's at such a high level. He just needs to bring it at the right time. It's the Djokovic opposite, very Djokovic opposite. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So we completely agree then, because for me, it's, hey, those misses in 2020, they were good misses. You just missed it. Like, it was the right forehand. It was just a shank. Or you're right. Sometimes he does get a little bit excited, rein that one in, but stay the course, much like Dominic Thiem. There's nothing that happened in 2020 other than the Chorich loss, which he followed up so well at the French, that has me anything but positive about Tsitsipas.
And off the court, continue to be the cutting edge of self-marketing and marketing, and stay weird.
No,
stay weird.
You're really self-marketing. That's a perfect way to put it. That's another wish list. Keep doing it.
just be you, man.
Yeah.
Tweet stuff that nobody knows what it means, but we're with you. We feel you. All right, Alexander Zverev, first major final, Australian Open semifinal. This was it was under the radar because it was such a weird Grand Slam calendar, but he did kind of shed the whole Grand Slam mental block or physical block, depending on how you looked at it. That label Zverev was able to shed. So in that respect, that's kind of what what he needed to do, and it was kind of a very successful year that way. So I thought it was a good year. My number one wish list for Zverev is to have better relationships with off the court.
Everyone.
Yeah. And this goes multiple levels. He just settled with his agent in court. He's had messy breakups with a lot of his coaches. Get along with Federer, make that a good relationship, make that work, and that'll be all the difference for Zverev.
When every relationship goes toxic, it's not them. It's every relationship in your life goes toxic. It's probably not you're getting involved with all of these different individual toxic people, or if you are, that's also indicting on you and who you are as a person. And yeah, my wish list for him would just be speak the truth. Like, tell us the truth. You want people to forgive and accept everything that happened. Tell us what happened. Be candid. Don't hide behind other entities. Don't hide behind the ATP press wall of people not pressing you. Speak about it. If you truly want to be exonerated, then this is not how someone who's innocent acts. It's just not. And yes, I think that's the biggest thing for him is settling life off the court. That is the biggest wish list. Now, this is something we're going to talk about in the Great Shot podcast, so we can save the extended thoughts for there because I want to ask you about it then as well. I did a show with Sasha Bajin, humble brag. Sasha, humble brag. There was a lot of shoulders in the show, not much else. But in terms of, we were talking about the most improved player on the ATP Tour in 2020. Zverev doesn't win the award, but he deserves an honorable mention because when you look at purely the results, whether it was the home stretch down the end, winning back-to-back in Cologne, whether it was the fact that it was semifinals of the Australian Open, finals of the U.S. Open, as you mentioned, it was unequivocally a step forward for him. And it was a much-needed step forward because he's kind of pitter-pattered in that top 10, top 5 range. But the hardest jump for any player to make is from top 10, top 5 to potential to be number 1 in the world. And he wasn't there, but it was 30-all in that service game, right? He was 2 points away from winning the U.S. Open. And the moment Alex Zverev gets Grand Slam number 1 under his belt, the serving issues will become that much less because the self-confidence will become that much more. All that's clouded by the off the court stuff, but that would be my wish list on the court was met in 2020. And I guess it would just be, again, another guy to stay the course because it was a step forward. If the relationships are right off the court, there's no reason he can't have even more success moving forward.
And I think the reason for that was the forehand. I just think it took such a leap, and
the first serve.
Yeah. But the first serve, I think we had seen that before. But the forehand at this level of consistency was really a huge difference in his game. On the second serve, I think he needs to make a technical change. Enough is enough when it comes to it's mental, it's confidence. It's like, okay, like it's time to do something different here, technically.
The reason I have a smile on my face is because I've spent so long being a defender, right? And it's like nowadays every instinct is still, come on, Alex, you're going to let him slander Alex Zverev, the tennis player, like that? I try to yes. Like I watch him with a tennis racket. I'm telling you, 5 minutes in every match he plays, you're like, this is the best tennis player I've ever seen. I still feel that way in everything he does with the racket. The volleys got significantly better this year. I thought that was another huge jump. I mean, I forget the flavor. It's like, I don't remember what TV show it was, but it's like, you're like a poopy flavored lollipop. And that's what that second serve is. It's a poopy flavored lollipop. You're like, this is disgusting. I don't want anything to do with this. I like, that's not technical. That's just everything. Like it has to be mental to me because the only reason any tennis player who's a professional player, who's top 10 in the world, would ever produce anything like that in public is because they have some sort of mental block.
Okay, even if it's mental, change the technical, because the mental isn't getting fixed, right? Like, it's
Very
been
true.
so long.
Very true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to Andrey Rublev, the tour leader in titles with 5, tied with Djokovic for most wins. I was very proud. I predicted him to finish the season number 8, and I think he started at 21 and 22, and I finally got one right in my preseason top 10 prediction, so I will gloat about it. For me, transition game. Give me that approach shot volley, because against the best defenders on tour, you need that extra level of offense. Now, the first serve was that unbelievable kind of improvement that we saw in 2020, which I think you've pointed out when we've talked about Rublev. So that got so good. Now you have the serve, you have the +1 forehand. Give me that next step and be able to finish points at the net.
You know, I don't think people talk enough about the jump Andrey Rublev made this season, Gil. I don't think he got
the media isn't covering this.
Yeah, I don't think the media talks about it enough. Yeah, everything you said, I agree with. Unequivocally a step forward. The serve has improved. The forehand is Del Potro-esque, but it feels like it has more spin on it, which is just a crazy thought. The way he moves, though, that to me is the most amazing development in Andrey Rublev's physical profiles, because 2 years ago, even when he made that quarterfinal and it was 17 or 18 at the US Open, it was on the backbone of serving really well and just hitting blistering ground strokes. He's not elite, but he's a very good mover. And I never saw that coming from him. So yeah, for me, it's like, I think even for him, so his steps just moving forward, sometimes he overruns approach shots, sometimes he underruns volleys. He's always just like half a step off of where he should be to cover that first volley, and then that first volley hangs, and you can't give any pro tennis player 2 looks at passing shots because they'll make the second one. So yes, my wish list is exactly the same as yours for you, or just continue to round out that skill, because you create time and space for yourself. Now move forward, take that time, take that space away, and things become that much easier for you.
Yeah. Keep the grunt is on my wish list.
Very much. It's not a grunt.
That.
It's a primal like roar. It's just like, he's like, I can't help it.
Yeah. It's gold. And then also, lastly, I'd say continuing to care deeply about every single point, which Absolutely. Nadal, the media doesn't talk about how Nadal cares about every point. And and I think Rublev should get credit for having a similar makeup.
Yeah, no, I don't think the media talks about how great of a GOAT debate there could be in men's tennis. I mean, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they're all really good, and we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, nobody ever talks about that.
Yeah, the crazy swerve is like, you bank the 3 Russians, Medvedev, Rublev, Khachanov. 2018, if I would have asked you who's the best, Khachanov, no question. 2019, I ask you, Medvedev, no question. 2020, given the end of the year he had, you probably stick with Medvedev. But man, Rublev on clay was a revelation. It really was for me. And that, to me, I just think he's such a good competitor that he's never going to be bad at Wimbledon, because he's never going to be bad anywhere. But yeah, I loved what I saw from Andrey Rublev. People don't talk about how good he was in 2020.
This next one is like the one that actually these next 2 I had a lot of trouble with. Diego Schwartzman, I don't know, man. He was playing the best baseline tennis arguably in the world for a lot of the clay court season. If you look at Rome and if you look at Roland Garros, and then he qualifies for the ATP finals with a good run in Paris. Man, what a year. And just talk about, we probably, one thing that's unfortunate is the shorter players always get labeled as talent maximizers, and then the taller players never get that title, which is wrong. But it's like serve bigger. I don't know. what my wish list is. It's like,
Yeah, I think for him and Berretini, and honestly, Gael Monfils, the next three guys in the rankings, 9, 10, and 11, I would have the same wish for all three of them, and it's health. Because for Mateo Berrettini, we know what he does well. When he's healthy and can execute well, he had success in 2019 across all three surfaces. For Gael Monfils, his start to 2020 and honestly 2019 were both so impressive, but he faded down the home stretch due to injury. Hopefully that's not the case. And then for Diego Schwartzman, this is the question I keep asking everyone. Was Diego Schwartzman a discernibly different player in 2020 than he was in 2019, or were the results just different? I tend to lean towards the latter, and that's why I continue to just say health, because clearly things are starting to open up a little bit, and he's a guy who's always in the mix.
Yeah, that's a good question. I thought his forehand was particularly consistent this year, and I think that backhand has always been a machine and underrated, and it's so good. But I think the forehand was sometimes a shot where it's like, you're not really, it's not on the same level as your backhand. It's not quite there. And I feel like he evened things out a little bit this year.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Everything was just a little bit more well-rounded about his game.
Right. Berrettini was another tough one. As I said, it's like, don't think too hard. I don't have much for him. He needs to stay the course and hope that there's a grass season, because he's excellent on grass.
And put a ring on it immediately. Yeah,
I don't follow him on Instagram. I'm sure I would know what you were talking about, but
he's dating Alia Tomljanovic, right? I believe so.
Oh,
I'm pretty
totally
sure.
Right.
Yeah,
you are totally right. Yes,
marry immediately.
Yes.
I'm all about all tennis couples. That's one of my fortes.
Okay. Wish list, marry. Gael Monfils, don't let the train derail. Again, injury as you mentioned, and then he's just been playing so well post Australia in both 2019 and 2020. Unfortunate things have happened. And also stay on Twitch.
Yes, I was going to say bridge player, generations, next gen and generation Federer, you know, where they come together is on Gael Monfils' Twitch show. So stay the course.
All right, let's stop going up the rankings and let's hit on some special wild card editions, okay?
I love it.
We have to hit Jannik Sinner real quick. He is top 10 in ELO rankings. This podcast is brought to you by Tennis Abstract. No, just kidding. It's not. We just use it as a resource.
Yeah, Jeff just filed suit. Just so
exactly. Not that, I mean.
No, we love Jeff Sackman. We literally have been referencing it this entire. Yes,
right. Yeah. What do you have for Jannik Sinner?
Turn 20. Like, I don't know. Turn 21, because everything was better. Okay. It was just like, that's why he's going to win most improved when the ATP awards come out. And it's going to be him or Rublev probably. And we'll talk about this again on the Great Shot Pod. But like, it's a crime if Sinner wins the award, because yes, he should be acknowledged for something. And we have a make-believe category for him. But the only thing that got better about him was he was another year older.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I'll just add on to that and basically say the same thing, which is develop physically. Like, that's going to happen naturally, and just keep putting in the work in the gym, as I'm sure he will. He's got to get a little stronger. No,
that's exactly what I meant. Play more matches, stay in the gym, don't do drugs, except for pot, do your thing.
Nick Kyrgios. For me, it's like, it's kind of, I thought this was a good year, stay happy.
I'm trying to make it happen. I asked him when he came on the show, hire James Blake as your coach. That's a pairing that would just be delightful. It would be so incredible. Just get someone in your box who believes in you. And, the reason I say that, we had him on the Cracked Interviews podcast, and he was like, that would be the guy for me that would be the most fun to coach. Doesn't have to be James Blake, but there are so many people out there, Nick, who believe, or I don't know why I addressed it to him. Obviously he watches the show, but there are so many people out there who believe in Nick. And it's just like, surround yourself with those people who believe in you, not just the individual off the court. And you've shown how great you are off the court with your foundation, but believe in you on the court, because we're all out there.
That's a great wish. I really like that. Get
In
yourself
the Hanukkah spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, the Americans. Let's just say
Perfect.
Taylor Fritz, Riley Opelka, Brandon Nakashima. I don't know, whatever you want to grab onto for me. My big one is Opelka, though, and we both agree that he moves a lot better than John Isner. The serve is kind of on the same track as John Isner, and it'll get to that level. Mm-hmm. What I want in Opelka is I want the 2018 John Isner forehand out of Riley Opelka. I don't know if we agree on this one, but I do think that Opelka's forehand is still a little bit spinny, and I think it can get bigger. I really think there's some potential in that's untapped.
We completely agree. And I think that's the side opponents know to serve to. And I think that's for a lot of these Americans. For Francis Tiafoe, every day it's improve that forehand racket speed. That's the wish list. And he, by the way, made a big jump. I won't run you through the stats. I did it on a mini break a couple of weeks ago. So if you listeners are interested, but trust me, he made a jump. The numbers prove it. And for Opelka, it's the same deal because that forehand backswing does get a little bit big. And I agree with you. I think Riley Opelka's backhand is just good. Not good for a 7-footer. It's just good. And yeah, the serve, all of the above continues to advance. And what I like about him is he takes his chance on the returns. He's just like, I have to play rip. I have to play big. I would say mimic Federer's forehand probably instead of John Isner's. I'm not a heightist like you, I guess. But flatten out is a great way of putting it. Flatten out that forehand a little bit because he can flatten it out. And when he does, it's scary.
Yeah. All right. How about, is there anyone, first of all, is there anyone that you definitely want to hit on?
Do you want to do 10 minutes on Kozlov? I would. Yeah. No, I mean, for all of the young players, and I think I'm going to lump them all together, Alcaraz, Musetti, Nakashima, Svajda. I honestly, you could throw in so many. The Yimmers are like 21 and 23, and Bublik's like 23. For all of these guys, just stay the course because there are so many different young talented players right now in this generation. For me, if there was one more guy I would want to talk about who I'm looking towards for next season as what do they really have left in the tank, and it's another wish list of get them healthy, that would be Kei Nishikori, because this would have been the window for him. 30, 31, a step slower for Nadal, step slower for Djokovic, Federer on and off with injuries. I mean, how amazing would it be if Kei Nishikori and Naomi Osaka swept the tennis Olympics in Japan, and what that would do for tennis in Asia and just on the continent. And obviously we've seen huge investments from China into the WTA. And if you want to talk about the ethics of that, we'll do it on another show, but it's just, I continue to believe in Kei Nishikori's game. There's too much explosion. He's so phenomenal. I really hope injuries don't rob us of a late career resurgence, and I really hope he's healthy come Olympic time because I am rooting for the Japanese sweep.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'm with you on that. There's a certain class of players that will be interesting to watch. Goffin, Nishikori,
Dimitrov.
Yes, certainly.
It's been good. Who was good? I thought that Humbert match and Demon Hour match, or maybe it wasn't Humbert, maybe it was Demon Hour match that he lost. That was one of my favorite matches of the season in Antwerp.
Yeah. COVID, by the way, that's one guy that COVID derailed his season real bad. Which thankfully I don't think there's too many players that we can say that about. But Dimitrov had a rough go of things. Del Potro, you reminded me of Del Potro. And we hope that he comes back healthy. That is the number one wish of everyone always, is that Juan Martín Del Potro can just play tennis and enjoy.
I have one more question for you in terms of a wish list.
Okay.
Your ideal guest on Monday Match Analysis in 2021, if you could get one person. And I mean, if you want to say Roger, Rafa, Novak, Serena, like blah, 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 duh. But give me one other person, a dream guest who you've been chasing for 2021.
I can't promise you that I've been chasing them, because
Future cousin-in-law Steve Weissman.
they're. I would. He does need to come on. We
I
were
know.
once scheduled to come on, and then things got in the way, and then we never. Good point. That's tough.
I know there's so many, right?
It is. There are. I mean, probably maybe Nico Masu. I would love to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what he's done is very, very, it's just very important, and he plays a very interesting role in a very unique, situated player in Dominic Thiem. Uniquely.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one for me, because I only ask questions that I ultimately want to answer, as we both know.
That's the number one rule of asking a question.
It's probably Courier. I just feel like Courier is that perfect nexus of he'll talk about the young guys. He still watches. He's very analytical, but he's also got dirt. He's also a redhead, so there's a chip on his shoulder. That's just my dream guest. I mean, I think he would be really good as well. Also, for the record, if I ever got Pete Sampras, which I'm not saying I'm making any inroads on, maybe I can speak it into existence like I have so many other things.
I know where this is going.
No, you're coming on. Like, it'll be the three of us, and we'll just all like stare for a minute, and we'll all just kind of be like, okay, who's number one? And it'll be a little showdown there, and then we'll probably both have to give rein to Pete.
Probably, most likely. Yeah. Or he can just threaten to serve at us or something.
Butts up.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Nobody wants that. Players, by the way, because it was a good question, I'm going to keep going. Probably Tsitsipas and Kyrgios are probably the two players who I would talk to outside of the obvious ones.
Yeah. Kyrgios is a great one because you think he'd be candid. Oh, that's a really good. I mean, some of them are. I'm trying to think who's like
Osaka. Also, I'd love to talk to
for sure. People don't talk enough about Andrey Rublev, but I just want to hear. I want to sit with them. What my dream Cracked Racquets segment is that we sit with these players in the film room, and I can just say, I show them the points, and I say, you tell me what you were doing here. And it's just like, I want to be like, so Andre, were you going for 160 mile per hour forehand? Was 170? Like, what was the thought process here that was like Mach 10 down the line? And I think he would just give some interest. Or Medvedev. Medvedev would be the best example, because it's like, why did you hit the drop shot lob on this shot? And he's like, well, it was the only one open. And you're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. I've seen that done once. It was with Coco and Chris Fowler. But that's a good idea. It's definitely
trademark Monday match analysis. Actually, that's a perfect Monday match analysis segment. Let's be honest.
I will invite you. So if you get Pete, I'll come on. And then if I do that, you'll be on there. All right.
Well, I'm not saying Steve likes me more than you, but Steve's been on like all three of our podcasts. So, no pressure on Steve Weissman.
Again, Steve agreed to come on, and I forget what happened, but something happened. So we'll get there.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yes.
Yes, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, again, this was very fun. So I have many wishes for 2021. Hopefully, again, more than anything too, hopefully the season goes on as scheduled.
Yes. It is the season. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Wishes, presents, gifts, wonderful thing. Thanks a lot for coming on, Grusky.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I was hoping you'd call me Alex by the end of this. I guess we're not quite there yet. But always pleasure. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you on the podcast for us, I think, pretty soon.